Hello, everyone. Wow, you are in for a treat. You can see we have a fourth member today in our little chat. Actually, Leanne is our first guest, so we're so excited. We all met, we've talked how we met through a mastermind. Well, here is the queen of our mastermind, Miss Leanne. So I'm going to turn it over to her for a moment and just let her introduce all her wonderfulness. And then she is actually going to ask us some questions. Leanne?
Yay! First of all, I'm so excited and so honored to be here. So the fact that I get to do this with three of like the favorite women, the favorite queens of my life, I've had such an honor and a privilege of being able to work with all three of you. So first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here and to be part of this. I feel like an honorary woman of wisdom today. So I'm going to crown myself with that title. But yeah, I'm Leanne Lopez Mosley. So I am an international business strategist. I am a best-selling author. I have a podcast, and I spent over 11 years in corporate. You can probably tell I'm from across the pond originally. So I'm British, and I moved to the States. Well, the first time I moved to the States, I was 21, and I always knew that I would probably end up stateside. And my mum and dad will tell you that they always knew I'd end up in America, right? Don't ask me why, don't ask me how, but they just knew. And my corporate career took me internationally for 11 years, which was an incredible opportunity to see the world and help big million and multi-million billion-dollar companies scale. And I thrived in the corporate world from a very young age. And it was also where I met my now husband, Justin. So we met, and it was when I was pregnant with my son, Bo, who just turned 4, that we decided both of us had globe-trotted for a big portion of our adult life, and it was time to settle down. And we ended up moving to Jupiter in sunny South Florida, where we now reside. And I had Bo, and I took like a year off for maternity leave because I took European maternity leave. So I was very, very lucky. And during that time, I decided to start listening to my intuition of launching my own coaching business. And in January of 2020, right before the world shut down, I went fully fledged into my coaching business and haven't looked back since. So now I coach incredible women like the three that are in front of me now on how to get clients and grow their business. So that is a brief intro into who I am and what I do.
Welcome, welcome.
So it's exciting to have you here. And having been a part of your world, we know how massively successful you actually are, which is awesome. And also how busy you are. And it's just good to get a different perspective on how you live in your age dynamic, how we're living in our age dynamic, and all that goes with that, right? All the identities, because we've talked quite a bit in some of our other episodes about the identities that we have as women. And we have all these hats that we normally put on, which is okay, right? Like you've got the business hat, the mom hat, the partner hat, like all of those things. But like, who are you as a woman? Like, who are you as a person? Because that is a part of the makeup, but there is more underlying that. And so we've had quite a few dynamic talks about that in some previous episodes. So it's nice to have you here as a younger version of success and all of those hats, and welcome.
No, I love this as well, because in so many of our chats, together as a group, as a collective, but also individually on our calls, so all three of you have given me such wisdom already. I feel like naturally you give a very different perspective. And it just is so refreshing to be able to have really honest and vulnerable conversations, because you're right. You all know me at a very personal level at this stage, but we do wear a lot of hats. And I do think, like, especially in the season of life that I'm in. So I mentioned I have a 4-year-old Bo, and I'm about to have my next child in 8 weeks. weeks. So it's imminent. I'm running a business. I'm about to be a mom of two. I'm a wife. I'm, all of the labels, all of the identities and the hats. So it's always incredibly powerful to speak to women in different seasons of life and get their perspectives on those identities, those seasons, and how to be most present in those seasons as much as you possibly can, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because as the seasons change in age, right? Importances in your life also change. We have done, we have all got kids. Our kids are all grown up. I have a daughter your age. And so it's like, but I mean, that's so true, right? So you go through all these different seasons, different ages. And what happens is that what becomes important to you in that moment in time, obviously is going to change as you get older. What is interesting though, is that the three of us have decided that we also wanted to be that highly successful businesswoman in this next chapter of our life, which a lot of people call the next chapter of our life, right? People look at our age and think, oh, well, you guys should be retiring now. Like, like you hit the big 60s. Well, I have. And it's like, okay, so then why what are you doing? Like, why are you doing this? And it's like, why not do this, right? Like there's a service to be given to other people. And I just think it's a unique dynamic that the three of us have, that we've decided to do this at this age. And really, I guess from looking at somebody your age, it's like the possibilities are completely limitless to you. Like completely limitless to you. You're having this enormous success and you've changed corporations, you've changed your dynamic of what it is that you want to do. You've worn different hats in that whole arena and you're still evolving and still changing. And that's probably going to continue throughout right up into your 60s, 70s, 80s, where however long you want to let that happen.
Yeah, which I love, and long may it continue, because I think it's interesting when I think of all three of you. And I guess one of the questions I would have is, what did it feel like to start a business in the season of life that you're in? Because I know that even for myself, after a long time my version of a long time, it was a big portion of my adult life. I joined corporate straight out of university when I was 23. So for me, spending that period of time, that 10 plus years, in that capacity was a huge part of my identity, which is something that you mentioned at the beginning of this. And I struggled a little, I'm going to be honest, like the transition from high achieving success. I had so much of my younger identity wrapped up in being that high achiever corporate woman. Starting a business, yes, right now I'm in the thick of a season of like, it's doing amazing and it's growing and all the accolades are coming in, which feels amazing. But there was a period of time where that was not the case. So for me, I think it's a really important conversation to have, because I think there's this ideology that the older you get, the more fearless you are, in a sense that you don't care so much about what other people think. But I would love to know from you, Queens, what were the things that came up that were fear driven? What were the things that came up for you around wanting to start a business? Because I think that it's such an incredible perspective that you can now give to people. And in some respects, I feel like it's kind of missing a little bit in the online space, because there's a lot of very, very young people that have started businesses, which is great, but it also has a very different perspective to the wisdom that you're able to share.
Yeah.
I'm going to start off because I think I'm a little different than both Tracy's. I always was in a corporate world where they both have had either a family business or their own businesses, but I always was in a corporate world. Like I had that corporate background. I built my career through some form of a corporate background. And I always had this feeling, this pull. I wanted to do something. And then same as you, I lost my position to COVID. Well, I didn't, you took a year off, but I lost my position due to COVID. And well, let's be real. I'm over 60 and a woman finding a job over 60 is not that easy. But I also had this pull that I wanted to help other women. That's my type of business that I'm in. And I wanted to take that leap. And part of that was I don't feel my age at all. And I always had that feeling growing up, watching my parents' age and my grandparents' age, that when you had a certain age, life kind of changed. We talked about this in one episode. My grandmother was 97 when she passed. At 65, she retired. She joined the choir. She went and did her bingo. And, you know, that was all she did. Like, that was it. And I'm like, I'm getting to that age, and that's not what I want to do. And as you all know, I decided to do a race. And so, like, life really started changing for me in opening my own doors of new business, new adventures, doing new things, because I decided I don't feel my age of 62. I don't want to slow down, because when you do slow down, everything about you also slows down. And I don't want to slow down at all. So why not start a business? And just like you said, Leanne, there's not many older women in the online business. So we really didn't have a lot of role models. There was a lot of imposter syndrome. There was a lot of doubt or fear, like, do I hold a place with these younger women?
Yeah.
And that was a work through for me. That was a work through. And I realized that it didn't matter if I was 40, 50, 60, 70, I probably would have still had those feelings. So just do it. That infamous, just do it. That's my feelings on it.
Well, mine are different slightly.
Right.
Because mine was all about visibility. All of a sudden I got to this age and I'm stuck in a corner in the back, and I always chose that position to be in the back, in the background. And now I was like, wait a minute, I've never really shone out there or, shined my light in my whole life, where I put myself really out there with people in the outgoing way. And so visibility was huge for me. And I think it's going to be so different when you're in your 50s, Leanne, because I think there's just the change of people, exactly what Michelle just said. I'm not ready to just go and go into this corner and not be seen. I think we're actually being way more vocal. We're being way more visible. And we're saying we want to live life to the fullest until we no longer are on this planet. So that was my whole reason of getting in, is I wanted my voice heard, and I wanted to put myself out there and challenge myself.
I love that so much. I love that, because I think that there's so much pressure. I mean, even think about that. Now, more than ever, people's lives are more visible than ever before because of social media. And even I, obviously I'm still young, I'm 34, but the reality is I didn't grow up with social media. Like I wasn't on social media until I went to college. I was like 18 when Facebook came out, and I was at university. And so I spent a big portion of my teen years as a young girl with some really tough, like, self-worth crap going on. And I can't imagine how difficult that would have been under the lens of social media. And I think visibility now is a gift and a curse. It's such an essential part. I celebrate so much, like, the internet is an incredible thing. Social media is an incredible thing. It's how I'm able to reach so many women. It's how I'm able to grow my business. But it also comes with a side that is tricky around visibility. And it can feel extremely intimidating to make yourself and your life very visible on social media. And so I think it's really interesting that you, especially knowing you, and we've had those conversations around kind of that role that you had versus the role that you're taking now. I think that I applaud you, because I think it's not an easy feat to make I found it hard to make myself very visible in the transition from corporate to what I do now. And so I can't imagine how that would feel with an additional, you know, decade or so, like on top of that, of like not having done
a couple
that.
of decades, but
So, but I love that. I love that as a conversation because I think it's such a powerful thing.
But it goes back to what Michelle was saying too, is that we have a voice and we want to serve people we know we can help. We know we
Right.
can help.
Yeah.
Sitting over there, not needing that extra push.
Mhm. For me, I think it's that I don't think it really matters what age you are at. You are going to have fears and doubts, and there is going to be
Mhm.
all of those things that you're going to face. You're just going to be older or younger or whatever, right? I think all of us struggle, like you said, Leanne, with being visible because of the double-edged sword that creates. It's like you're being vulnerable, you're sharing parts of your life that you are risking being rejected for. Nobody likes that. You know, our brains just freak out at that prospect. And then there is that whole aspect that you have to be visible in order for people to be able to find you, in order for your voice to be heard. Like, we want our voices to be heard because we feel like we have something valuable to say. I had a whole career before I started my life coaching business, and I was self-employed. I worked in a very male-dominated industry, but again, was in the back, like literally in the back. I was like in closets, like punching down cables and stuff like that. Like, that's what I did. And so, I mean, the idea of having my face out there was like a fate worse than death. It was like, please don't make me do that. Like, I'll just be the voice. Let's put something else up there in front, and that'll be okay. So, and even now, it still takes a lot for me just to be able to go, you know what, like, this doesn't matter. It's what I'm saying that creates the impact. And I think we all are going to face those fears. It's going to look different for you at 50. But it's just going to be another different kind of challenge that you are going to navigate your way through.
Yeah.
And it's
And I
just
love
going to
that.
constantly evolve.
Yeah, which is, I think is so beautiful, because you're right. It's like the goal shouldn't be, and it isn't realistic to think you're going to go through life without fear or without doubt. And I'm sure that doesn't diminish, that doesn't get any smaller the older you get, right? It just is, that's the way our mind is programmed. It's to keep us safe. It's to keep us comfortable. I think the biggest thing is that, I think, Michelle, you were saying this, or I can't remember who was saying it at the beginning. It's that idea of like growing continually throughout the different seasons. Like, that's the beautiful thing about fear, of leaning into fear and being courageous enough to take the action anyway. If you don't have fear, you don't know what courage feels like. Right. And I think that that's what real experience and transformation looks like. So the idea of going through life like without being fearful is completely unrealistic. And actually it helps us grow. It helps us transform. It helps us inspire other people to do the same. And I know that all three of you are incredibly inspiring women to different generations of women, whether they be in your own generation of women or whether they be in my generation. I know I find you inspiring for multiple reasons. But I think that this is such a good conversation because, again, I think as I've got older, I've got far more comfortable in my own skin, which I love. Like, I think one of the best things about the last 5 years, the last 10 years, is people often talk about like, I would love to be 20 again, or I'd love to be 21. I'm like, I can't think of anything worse. Like, I was at my most self-conscious. I had the lowest part of self-worth at that period in my life. And as I've got older and come into my own and become a mum and all of these things, I feel like I've really come into my own skin, and I've really become more comfortable with owning every part of myself, of who I am, and being able to share it, and being able to kind of be okay with the things that when I was younger, I was kind of almost embarrassed about or didn't want to share. And I was a lot more self-conscious, I feel like, when I was younger. That being said, we run businesses that are on the internet and are on social media, and it's a very visual thing. And I definitely feel the pressure as a pregnant woman right now. There are days where I don't really feel like showing up because I feel vulnerable, and I feel not as attractive, and I'm conscious of, aging, and I'm conscious of all of those things. So I would love to get your perspectives on that, because I think if that's something I think there's more pressure than ever with filters and just the space that we live in now, everyone starts to morph into the same face. It's like, how do we kind of embrace ourselves and embrace the aging process? Me and Justin talk about all this all the time. He's like, please don't mess up your face. Please don't be one of those people that puts loads of crap in your face. And I get it, because we see it a lot. And if you spend any time on Instagram, like I literally will look through some of the filters, and within 5 minutes, I want to go and see a plastic surgeon, right? It makes you feel immediately inadequate if you're in the wrong frame of mind. So what is that like being in the season of life that you're in? Because I'm like, if I'm feeling like that age 34, I can only imagine what it must be like to be in that space in a different season of life. So I'm curious to get your perspectives on that.
Well, that's really interesting, because I think regardless of what age you are at, you want to look good.
Yes.
Right? I don't think that hat ever, you don't ever kind of go,
yeah, you're not
well,
like, I don't care anymore. Yeah.
Exactly. So, interestingly enough, I just want to touch back on that whole mindset thing, because you at your age have tools and things that are available to you that I certainly wasn't aware that they even existed in my world, right? Like the only way I would ever find out that there was self-help is if I went and found a self-help section in a library or in a bookstore or something. It was like, and if you didn't know that they even existed, you wouldn't be walking down those aisles, right? Now it is so prevalent out there that these tools are available for other people to work with. Coaches are more available for people to work with. I think that there is a wonderful, wonderful dynamic for people in your age category having access to those resources that I think the three of us just didn't have. So we came late to the game. So all of those insecurities, all of those things that we had, for me, I know I carried further into my life. Like it was like, I was still, I mean, I can remember standing in front of the mirror, doing the whole, I just need an inch on either side. Now it's 2 inches on either side, but it's like, okay, whatever. And there is always going to be, I think for me anyways, that wanting to be a beautiful woman, but the dynamic of that changes also as you get older in terms of what that actually means to you, right? And it does take on a different persona at 66 to say, I want to be beautiful than it does at 34. There's no question, right? But there's nothing wrong with wanting to be beautiful. And there's nothing wrong with that aspect of that self-improvement to say, I'm going to keep working on myself. I'm going to work out. I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to do races. I'm going to do all of these things, right? Like, no, but I mean, that whole thing is inspirational, regardless of what age you are. And that's the stuff that I think truly is what makes you beautiful. It's that component of your life. And I know it sounds cliche and it's, we've all heard that, but I think at my age, I lean far more into that whole resonance of that's what makes me a beautiful person than this actual facial structure, right? It's like, this isn't bad. I'm pretty proud of it. And I carry my wrinkles with pride. You have
incredible skin. I always look at your skin and I'm like, your skin is amazing. I'm like, I hope my face looks like that. Like I'm
sitting here thinking the same thing as I'm looking at her. And I think as you age, I think people hit an age and they think things are over. For some women, it's hit in the 30s. At some, it hits 40s. At some, it hits 50s. And every cycle and age you go into should be a celebration.
Yeah.
And that took me a long time to figure out. I think because as I grew and understood more about aging and made some other changes within my life, and I love the way that Tracy had said, every woman wants to be beautiful, but you have to feel that beauty internally to make sure it comes out throughout your pores, throughout who you are. Because we, all four of us, know very beautiful women that once you get to know them, they're not beautiful at all. So beauty is not, It's
Just
not
the
just
surface
what your
level.
visual is, it's how you feel about yourself, and embrace aging. It's going to happen. You cannot stop it. Sorry, there is no,
I tried, didn't work.
it doesn't work. You can't,
Damn, I was hoping you were all going to share with me the magic secret switch
no,
that I could
you
find.
can't stop it. But work out, move your body,
Yeah.
keep engaging your mind
Mm.
in things, like just because you're you asked us why we started businesses, and we've talked about this. Half of it is we want our minds to keep being challenged and engaged and learning. And I've learned so much in the last 2 years, as you know, Leanne, and both Tracy's know. Like, I feel more alive now than probably I did in my younger years.
And that goes back to loving yourself. And if you can
Right.
learn in your 30s, because I look back and my whole life I was looking at the flaws in me, like the flaws that at 16 were there at 25, that were at the 35 that are at in my 50s, to why wasn't I celebrating the good things and just being so comfortable in my skin that when my skin changed, it's okay, because deep down, go deep. Who are you? And be really happy who you are. And then you get to embrace age, because like in my 40s, I was still looking at myself of a weight thing from being 16. What the hell is that about? Like, just enjoy who you are. Find out who you are and embrace it. Love yourself. You gotta love yourself.
Brilliant.
That's a huge difference. Just for me, it was
Brilliant.
a big turning
Yes.
point.
Yeah.
No, I love that so
Going deep,
much.
loving yourself, not just.
I know, because I think, it's interesting, Michelle, that you said that. And I know we've spoken about this before, but I think some of it is societal for sure, because I remember even becoming a mom, and it's like this idea of like, well, you'll never get your body back, and you'll never, it's like this constant negative connotation around the change of seasons from basically the period of becoming a mom, and then it becomes about menopause. I feel like motherhood and menopause are probably the two key pieces of when people basically act like you then just go onto some unattractive shelf.
Yep.
And I am privileged that my mom is, my mom is 62 this year. So, and she's had 3 kids. I am like the middle child. My mom is in an incredible shape. She's never, and not there's anything wrong with doing anything to your face. Like, I'm a big advocate of like, do whatever you want to do. My mom is always taking care of her skin. She is a beautiful woman. She is a beautiful woman, but she's also a beautiful woman from the inside out. And I was lucky enough, thank goodness, because of the insecurities I had anyway. I didn't grow up with a mum that was like constantly on a diet or constantly talking about her weight. My mum was always like had this confidence about her that I always loved. And as I've gotten older, and as she's kind of gotten older, sometimes I feel like her confidence has dwindled a little bit since she kind of has gone through menopause. And I think that's really difficult. And it's something that, I'm going to be honest, as a woman and as a daughter observing that in my mum, it can be a little bit scary, like the idea of aging. And, when I've seen the changes in her and how it's made her feel about herself, and from a confidence perspective, there's some fear that brings up in me. And it's just interesting, because I think it's so great to know different women in that age bracket, because you will have very different experiences of that season of life. And, Michelle, I always talk to you about it, but like, I just love that you're so in shape. Like, I just think it's incredible. I'm always like, I just want her arms. I'm 34 and I want your arms, like as they are now. Right. But it is that feeling of, radical self-love. Like, like I said, right now I'm in a season of pregnancy, and that can be challenging, but I also know that's got nothing on after the baby comes, because that was definitely challenging with Bo. So I guess I would love to know what advice you could give somebody in my season of life, that's especially in motherhood, like going through having a second baby, the level of expectation we now put on the bounce back, and the, making sure that all of a sudden, like you're back to how you were before, and how to be present in motherhood without obsessing over, my jeans fitting immediately after the baby comes, or, my boobs being exactly the way they were before I breastfed 2 kids, for example.
I think it's important to celebrate just what you did. You gave birth. Like, you have brought two humans into the world. And I think women forget the capability of what our body can do. And I wasn't one who did that. I was one who, like, I felt that need that everything had to be. But watching women now, I think women don't celebrate what they just went through and give themselves the grace to be in that moment and to celebrate giving birth. And, you know, I think as you're going through this transition for the next year, and it's going to be a year of transition and longer, you just be okay with where you are each day. So if you want, when you're ready and you want to work out, then you work out. But being healthy, being true to yourself, taking time with your husband, with Bo, with your little baby. Like, I think we always look like, oh, I have to get to, instead of, oh, I think I'm just going to take this moment in right now. And we've talked a lot about kids today being too busy. We keep them busy. We keep them in front of electronics, or we make sure they're involved in all these sports, and we make sure that they're in whatever going on. And I've talked about, you know, my kids would go out and I'd have to yell for them to come home, not text, for them to come home at dinner. And I raised two boys, and I used to love to see them dirty because I knew they were having fun. You know, just be present in what's going on. And at times, we've talked about this in other ways, shut off the world. It's okay to shut out everything else and just be where you are.
For me, looking back, I always, not that I have any regrets, but we were that family that was really busy with sports. And I ask the girls now about anything to do with any of those sports, and they're like, what are you talking about? Like, the memories aren't there, but the memory of us when a soccer game was canceled and we all hung out around the fireplace and watching a movie, you know, it's just the moments. And I think we were kind of caught up in making sure that we got everything right, that we, you know, rather than just stopping and enjoying what we were doing. And like, we, you know, if we weren't in soccer, we were in summer swimming, we were in hockey, they did karate, like all at the same time. It was stupid. Like, I look back and go, what was the point? So that's my advice, is once you bounce back, like, not to take everything on. Follow their where they want to go.
Right.
Rather than what I think should be where they should go.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
And that's a learning thing, right, for the kids.
Yeah.
I really think kids nowadays have a problem being alone. They don't know how to be their own best company. And I think that is a skill that really needs to be developed. Megs was an only child. So it was, you know, she had really no other choice than to learn some of those skills. And the biggest thing for the biggest takeaway I have had looking back on my motherhood years, not that they're over, but what I have taken away the most is we didn't do a lot of that. We tried let's put her in soccer, let's get her in this, and she was not a team sport kind of gal. She was like, you know what, like, this is not me. So we ended up, she ended up doing horseback riding and things like that, right? But I think the biggest takeaway was always, how do we create memories? That's what absolutely matters. It's like, what do we do? Like, it's March break, the kids are off school. What are we going to do that's going to make this March break really memorable? What are we going to do? Like, setting up traditions in the family for Christmases, Thanksgivings, for your holidays, for all of those things, birthdays. Like, it wasn't a birthday, it was a birthday week that we had with Megs. And it was like all of those little things. And that's what she talks about now. It's all of those memories that we created created, which is far more important than the stuff you end up doing, right? That's what is so important. And that's what I just kind of, we even now we sit and go, okay, what's going to create the biggest impact? What's going to create the biggest memory? Because at the end of the day, that's what everybody looks back on, right? When you get together with your family, what do? You reminisce about all the good times that you had, all the memories that you have, right? Oh, remember when we did this? Remember when we went here? Remember what we did there? Like, that's what we do. Just like the kids don't remember they were in soccer, hockey, or whatever they were in. They remembered the movie nights when everything got canceled, right? Like, that is what's really important. And when you focus in on that, everything else just kind of fades away into the background anyways. And like the biggest thing is get rid of the screens. Oh, the small ones, the big ones, all of it. Get rid of the screens. There's nothing more precious than, your kids are just way, itty bitty people, but like there's nothing more precious than game night. You sit down with board games and you play board games with your kids, and like everybody's talking and chatting and interacting and no one's looking at a phone.
Yep.
No one's like, oh, it is truly, that's what creates those memories. And that's what helps you also, I totally believe, stay in the moment, stay present in the moment, because all these distractions around you are not there, right? You are with your kids, you're with your husband, you're with, whatever. And
I think some of the greatest things is when I hear my boys talk about memories, or I see my boys do a tradition that I didn't even think they realized. Like, you didn't think it was important to them until, you realized and you saw the impact that it had on them.
Yeah. And it's true, that's such an interesting perspective, because you're right. Obviously, with all three of you sharing that, I started thinking about my strongest memories of like my favorite memories of being with my parents. My parents are both entrepreneurs, both incredibly hardworking humans. And I always talk about Christmas was always my favorite time of year, because it was the only time that my mum would sit down and watch a movie with me and, like not get dressed and those things. And you're right. It's like, we did dance, we did piano, we did like all the things. Right. And it's none of those things. Or if anything, it was actually when she would come. I remember when I did athletics, I did like high jump and long jump and stuff. And I was a good runner, and my mum would come and she'd make signs. And it's actually remembering her being there with the sign than it is, and her stupid pigtails and stuff. And like thinking about it now, it makes me smile, because they're the moments that I remember. Or vacations, like you were saying, like being on vacation, we were in Spain and we're playing cards on the balcony, right? Nothing outside of actually spending that quality time together. And I think you're so right. And especially when you run an online business where your life is tied to a computer and your cell phone, it always hurts my heart when, I'm going to be honest, like Bo's 4, and sometimes he's like, "Mummy, no phone." And I'm like, "Ooh," because you feel it. You're like, he knows that you're distracted. And if anything, I hope that, I quit drinking because I wanted to be more present in my life and I wanted to slow it down. Like that was one of the reasons that I stopped drinking. It will be 2 years in September. And I think you're right. I think having really strong boundaries with yourself around the electronics and around having those memories of being a family without it needing to be some big extravagant thing, or the soccer or the this or the that. And Bo's at that age where everyone's going, put him in this, put him in that. And I'm like, I have resistance to that for many reasons. But I think being present is something that especially I know my generation and younger generations really struggle with. And I think a big part of that is the constant need to check social media and the constant need to be like on your phone. So I think that that's such incredible advice, because I know that everyone tells you it goes fast, but I blinked and Bo is 4. So I can only imagine what it's going to be like.
And the constant being busy. And it's just like sometimes just exactly what everyone's just said, but it's also just listening and just, okay, I'm just going to let you talk and let's just hear what you have to say. We don't have to be so busy all the time.
Yeah, it's one of the things that people, and I was certainly guilty of this when I was younger as well, was to say, I'm too busy too. I don't have time to, right? And it's like, when you realize, when you quantify what a child thinks is a long period of time, it's nothing for you. It's like you
Yeah.
give them a half an hour or an hour of undivided attention. Not only are you going to benefit from that because you're going to feel so good about that, right? And it really is that undivided attention. It's not like, okay, I'm going to sit in front of you, you're going to play, and I'm going to be thinking about all the things that need to be done. It's like, no, we're going to get into your world and play with whatever it is that you're playing with. That time for them is enormous amounts of time. Whereas for us, it's like this much time, right? It's like, okay, and then you can get on with all of those other things. That's I think what really helps ground you and help you stay present with what's going on with the kids, for sure.
That's such good advice. Such good advice. Yes. Okay. I'm feeling like really excited. I think for the first time, all of you know me, I'm 120 miles an hour as a human. So the idea of taking a breath when the baby comes a little bit, some of that I find very challenging. So this is good advice to reground into, you don't get that time back. This could be my last baby. And it's like, you getting to experience and soak that up, and like I never get this season of time back, so there's plenty of time left to go on and achieve. And I think that's a really big thing to remember, like it's a marathon, right, not a sprint. So Michelle, you know a lot about that. So we've kind of touched upon this in different ways, and we've spoken about aging, we've spoken about motherhood, but I guess the only other question that I would love to get a perspective on is the idea of feeling like significant and relevant. I think that's such a normal human need, is that idea of feeling like significant to people, and feeling significant as a human being is such a normal thing. But how do you do that as you age? Like, how do you not get caught up in that anxiety around it, but ultimately still feel relevant and significant as you continue to kind of go through these different seasons in life? As your kids grow and they leave and they build their own lives, that puts you into a whole different place in terms of significance, right?
I think it goes back to, one, you have to love yourself, but two, you have to know yourself. You need to really know what makes you tick and really explore those activities or those thoughts and be really confident in you. And so as you age, your confidence continues on, and like you stay relevant because you know what's important, you know your values, and you know what you bring back to this earth. So that's what I find, is that if you really know who you are, you stay relevant.
Oh, I love that. Oh, that's so powerful.
That's brilliant, Tracy, because I know in my last career, before I became a life coach, was coming to its close, I was feeling very irrelevant, very irrelevant. I had no identity. I had no idea what it like. I identified myself by what it is that I did. And, you know, Megs was already on her own journey, her own path, doing her own thing. And I really struggled with that whole thing. It's actually what brought me to the whole coaching world, because I hired a coach because I was like, somebody's got to help me. And that's exactly what she taught me, was that the relevancy of a human is just the fact that they actually exist in the world. You are relevant exactly as you are right now, and you have the ability to love. And with that ability to love, that just is everything to the world. It's everything to you and everything to the world. All the other stuff is just stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's pretty much it. Pretty much it.
We were kind of talking about this a little bit in one of our past episodes, and we all said that we were going to ask our children this question. And, you know, when you meet somebody, we always ask, so what do you do? You know, and Tracy was saying that she has a friend who will automatically go to his hobbies, doesn't tell you anything about his occupation or his career. He goes right to his hobbies. And so we were all talking about this kind of same question. And then something that we should ask our children, but also ask ourselves, who are you? Not what role do you have? Not Leanne the mom, Leanne the business owner, Leanne the wife, Leanne the daughter, but who are you? If you were to describe yourself, how would you describe yourself? And that's going to be ever changing. We all have agreed that that is an evolution evolution of time, evolution of age, evolution of your careers, or where you are in your chapter of your life. And I still have not been able to fully answer this question yet, because we all sat there and said, yeah, that's really nice. We could ask our children, but if they ask us back, how are we going to answer it? But that's an important question. Like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like, and when you're able to look at like what's important to you, like Tracy had talked about, what's your values, you know, who are you at the core of your inside, that's what makes you relevant. That's what you should. And we talk about, as we age, a couple times being invisible comes up.
Mm-hmm.
And when you live in your roles and those roles are gone, that's when you become invisible, because you don't know who you are.
That is everything, because you're that is nail on the head, because you do. I think that's why, I don't know whether any of you had that similar experience when you first became a mom, but I feel like I had a complete identity crisis when I had Bo, and I was like, this is like, I don't know who I am anymore. Like, I was out of corporate, I was being in mum mode, and all of a sudden, you're right, you become consumed with the role that you're playing at that time. And I think for me, I'm very self-aware enough at this stage to realize that I definitely have shifted from corporate Leanne to mum Leanne to now business owner Leanne. And even that in itself, it's like it's part of what I do. And it's intrinsically linked to who I am, because I bring a lot of myself and my core values to my business. But me and Justin the other day were talking about writing a mission statement together as a couple. And I think you do that as a business, and you talk about, you know, I invest a lot in my marriage and make sure that we're, you know, making sure that we're investing the amount of time and effort that I do in my business into my marriage, but also into that relationship you have with yourself. Because you just made me think, well, what's my mission statement for me as a human being here, for my experience that I want to create here as an individual? Because the more you know yourself, the more you can bring to other people. The more you know yourself, the more you can stop placing your happiness outside of yourself and expecting other people to fill up that cup, right? And I think that everything that you've also powerfully shared is so beautiful, because like, who are you is such a powerful question, and it brings up a lot, but it's an important one to probably sit with. And it's okay if that changes, because I'm sure like day to day that feels slightly different, and year to year and season to season there's some differences there. But embracing all of those identities, but also remembering that at its core, you are your own human being, regardless of whether you're a mum or you're not, regardless of whether you have a business or you don't, or any of the things, or you're a wife or you're not, who cares? It's like, who are you at a fundamental level? And knowing yourself comes first, loving yourself comes first has been a big theme of what we've spoken about too.
Yep.
So,
one of the things we did say was that it's really interesting when you read obituaries.
Yep.
And I know that's kind of morbid, but it's like when you think about that, when you think about someone giving a eulogy to somebody else, they may touch on the fact that you are, you know, you were a wonderful mother, or you are an incredible businesswoman. But what is talked about is you as the human experience that they have of you, right? The dynamic that you have brought to their life. And that is probably if you sat down and wrote your own eulogy, that would tell you exactly who you are.
Oh my God, that is a beautiful and powerful exercise. Like, and it's not, you know, I know you say that I can feel morbid, but you're right. It's like, I remember leaving the corporate world, and it was when everyone told me all of the things about me, how I'd helped them, or like you said, it wasn't just about like you as a boss, but you as a human being. Like, I've loved being around you for these reasons. And I remember joking, I was like, I feel like I'm dying, and everyone's like now telling me all the nice things that I should have known like throughout that 10 years with that company. But I think that is a powerful way of doing it. When you ask yourself, who am I? Like, the idea of like, also not just who am I, but how do I want to be remembered? Like, what am I, you know, what's the legacy that I want to leave behind? And where is there a gap between that? Where am I not fully owning myself and stepping into creating that legacy for myself?
So when you talk about advice, slow down, do you want Bo to remember you as the CEO of a badass company, or does you want him to remember you?
Both. That's the thing. Is like, I know,
but you don't want him to just remember you for that. You want him to remember you because she ran a company, but
Yeah.
we would play
Yeah.
Connect for every
Yeah.
Friday night, or Saturday was,
Totally.
the day we went running through the sprinklers, or I'm just trying
Yeah.
to think of.
No, but you're
these
right.
things.
I definitely feel one of the things I'm trying to work on this year is like having more fun, being able to let loose a little bit more. And I would class myself as a pretty fun person, but with Bo, I think sometimes like Justin gets that role, like the dad role is like he's the fun one, right?
Mhm.
And I'm like, I feel like I'm always the very sensible one, and I would like to step into him feeling like I'm fun and remembering like laughing with me and like making him hysterically laugh so that his cheeks hurt, you know? And yeah, I want him to know that his mum is a badass, because I am, right? But I don't want him to remember that mum was always on her phone and on her laptop and was excited about growing her business, but wasn't excited about spending time with me.
Right.
And so I think that that's a great thing to remember is, you know, how do I want my kids to remember this season of their life? And, you know, he's about to, you know, he's 4, so he's still a tiny human, but those past 4 years have flown. So I can only imagine where the next 4 and 14 of those years are going to go. And then, yeah, so yeah, this is incredible. This is such a powerful conversation. I feel like I could talk to you, all 3 of you, all day long.
And then one thing I want to say though, when you do ask yourself, is it's exciting if you don't get the right answer, because you get to change. If you're, it's exciting. How exciting it is that you're going to go now and be more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, but you're even going to be more fun. Like, you know, when you
Right.
start asking those questions, it's pretty amazing stuff.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, like without the
Okay.
shame and judgment of like,
Yeah.
I'm getting it wrong. Oh my God, I'm getting it wrong. It's like,
Right.
okay, so like, but let's do it differently. Let's change some stuff. And that noise, or is that just me? Oh, was that just on my end, or did you guys hear that?
We heard
I,
about.
I heard it too. I don't know whose that
was
was.
weird. I don't know
So,
what that was.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's incredible, because you're right. It's like you can continually choose to be better, to do better, to lean into the things that you want to experience more of. And it's not a place of like, I'm broken, or I'm failing at motherhood, or I'm failing at XYZ. It's just embracing those parts that you really want to amplify. Love
Yeah.
that.
And to share, you know what? And it's also, I think, really important to share that opinion that you have of other people to other people, like to take the time to say to your parents, you know what, you're this person to me, you are this person to me. It's like, you know, I never did that enough with my mom. I really wish I had it, because I think she was an incredible badass, and she didn't run a company at all, but she was still a badass, and she had chutzpah, and she was so much fun. Like, such good times with her. And, you know, I just probably never said it enough, and wish I did. So
Yeah.
it's good to share that.
No, that's
Share
great
that love.
advice.
Yes. Well, Leanne, I think that's a great way to end it. Full of love. Spread the love.
Yes.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us. It's
No, thank
wonderful
you.
seeing
Yeah.
that beautiful face.
No, thank you for having me. This was so fun. And yeah, I really hope that it helps whoever watches this, and whatever you take away from this. I think just having amazing women in your life, I feel so lucky to be surrounded. You know, I work with women all day long, but I attract and will get to work with women like you, and the 3 of you are no exception to that. It feels like such an honor and a privilege to be able to work with you, but also to get your incredible perspective on things that are really important conversations to have. So thank you for the fact that you guys are doing this and sharing this incredible opportunity with everybody that needs to hear from you.
Thank you.
you.
Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you as a regular member of our community.